The space station floated in the darkness between stars. Its name was Harmony's Edge, and it was built for one purpose: to bring different species together for talks. Today, it would host the most important meeting in human history. Jin-Ho walked down the long corridor toward the main meeting room. His black diplomatic uniform was simple but clean. Behind him walked Subin, a woman in military dress, and Taiman, who carried a datapad filled with scientific reports. They were the human delegation, and they had traveled far from Earth for this moment. 3 years had passed since first contact. 3 years since alien ships had appeared in Earth's sky. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Council, and they ruled thousands of worlds across the galaxy. They had been watching humanity for decades, they said, waiting for the right time to make contact. That time was now. The meeting room was huge. A circular table sat in the center, with seats for 20 different species. Most of the seats were already filled. Jin-Ho had studied each species during the long journey to Harmony's Edge. The tall, blue-skinned Veltharians controlled most of the Council's military. The small gray Nexari handled trade and commerce. The insect-like Thrak were the builders and engineers. At the head of the table sat Chancellor Krikstar, the Veltharian leader. His cold yellow eyes watched the humans enter the room. A thin smile crossed his face, but it was not friendly. "Ah, the humans have arrived," Krikstar said. His voice was deep and carried easily across the room. "Please take your seats. We have much to discuss." Jin-Ho sat down across from the Chancellor. Subin took the seat to his right, Taimin to his left. Around the table, alien eyes watched them with expressions that ranged from curious to hostile. "Let us begin," Krikstar said. "The Galactic Council has decided to offer humanity a place in our great civilization. This is an honor that few species receive." Jin-Ho nodded politely. "We are grateful for this opportunity. Earth's governments have authorized me to negotiate the terms of our membership." Several aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. Krikstar's smile grew wider. "Negotiate," the Chancellor said. "I think there has been a misunderstanding. We are not here to negotiate. We are here to inform you of the terms you will accept." The room grew quiet. Jin-Ho felt Subin tense beside him, but he kept his voice calm. "I see. Perhaps you could explain these terms." A Nexari delegate stood up. His name was Vexnai, and he was known for his hatred of new species joining the Council. "The terms are simple," he said. "Humanity will remain within your home system. You will not expand beyond the orbit of your outermost planet without Council permission." "That seems restrictive," Jin-Ho said carefully. "There is more," Vexnai continued. "Your species will provide 60% of all resources you produce to the Council. This includes metals, food, manufactured goods, and energy. Consider it payment for our protection." Taiman leaned forward. 60%? "Our worlds would struggle to survive on 40% of our output." "You will adapt," said a Thrak delegate. "Lesser species always do." Subin's hand moved slightly toward her sidearm, but Jin-Ho gave her a small shake of his head. He had expected this. The intelligence reports from the past 3 years had suggested the Council viewed humanity as primitive and weak. "What about technology sharing?" Jin-Ho asked. "Surely there are benefits to membership beyond protection." Krikstar laughed, a harsh sound. "Technology sharing? You must understand your place, human. The Council does not share advanced technology with inferior species. You may purchase certain limited technologies, but only after proving your loyalty." "And how do we prove this loyalty?" Jin-Ho asked. "By following orders without question," Vexnai said. "By accepting your role as servants to your betters. By understanding that humans are children playing with fire, and we are the adults who must guide you." The insults continued for another hour. The aliens spoke of humanity like they were animals that had learned to speak. They discussed human worlds like property to be divided. They made jokes about human intelligence and human weakness. Through it all, Jin-Ho sat quietly and listened. He took careful notes. He asked polite questions. He never raised his voice or showed anger. Finally, Vexnai stood again. "There is one final matter," he said. "The Council has determined that humans breed too quickly and spread too far. We have identified several suitable worlds where the human population can be relocated and properly managed." "Relocated?" Jin-Ho asked. "Yes, your current worlds are inefficient. We will move human populations to worlds better suited for your needs. Worlds where you can be supervised and guided." Subin stood up so fast her chair fell backward. You want to move our people like cattle. Sit down, soldier, Krikstar commanded. You speak only when spoken to. Subin looked at Jin Ho. Her eyes were blazing with anger, but she sat down when he nodded. Jin Ho was quiet for a long moment. Around the table, aliens waited for his response. Some looked amused. Others looked bored. None looked like they expected resistance. Let me make sure I understand, Jin Ho said finally. You want humanity to give up 60% of everything we produce. You want us to stay locked in our home system. You want to control what technology we can use. And you want to move our people to worlds of your choosing. Correct, Krikstar said. These are the terms. You will accept them or there will be consequences. Jin Ho nodded slowly. He closed his notebook and put away his pen. Then he stood up. Ambassador Jin Ho, Krikstar said, you have not given us your answer. Jin Ho looked around the table at each alien face. His voice was calm when he spoke, but there was something cold in his eyes. 3 years ago, when your ships first appeared over Earth, do you know what our leaders did? They welcomed us with open arms, Vexnai said. Like primitives seeing gods. No, Jin Ho said. They prepared for war. The room went silent. For 3 years we have watched you. We have learned about you. We have seen how you treat other species. We hoped we were wrong about you. We hoped you were better than what our intelligence suggested. Jin Ho picked up his briefcase. Subin and Taemin stood beside him. Today you have confirmed our worst fears about your character. You are not the enlightened civilization you pretend to be. You are bullies and tyrants who see other species as resources to exploit. You dare insult the council? Krikstar roared, rising from his seat. Jin Ho walked toward the door. At the threshold, he turned back. We came here hoping to find friends among the stars. Instead, we found enemies. You have made a terrible mistake today. You mistake our desire for peace as weakness. You mistake our diplomatic approach as surrender. His voice grew colder. History will remember this day. It will remember how the Galactic Council chose war over peace, how you chose dominance over cooperation. And it will remember what happened next. Jin Ho walked out of the room. Subin and Taemin followed. Behind them, angry alien voices filled the air. The negotiations were over. The real work was about to begin. 3 months had passed since the humans walked out of the meeting at Harmony's Edge. Chancellor Krikstar sat in his office on the Council homeworld, reading intelligence reports with growing confusion. This makes no sense, he said to his aide, a young Veltharian named Torgan. Where did they go? The reports were all the same. Human ships had vanished from every trade route. Their colonies had stopped all communication. Even Earth itself had gone dark. No radio signals, no ship traffic, nothing. Perhaps they retreated to their homeworld in fear, Torgan suggested. Many primitive species do this when faced with superior force. Krikstar nodded. It made sense. The humans had seen the power of the Council and decided to hide like frightened children. Across the galaxy, other Council members were having similar thoughts. Trade Minister Vexnai was already drawing up plans to claim human territories. Military Commander Zethron was preparing patrol fleets to secure the abandoned systems. It is natural expansion, Vexnai told the Emergency Council session. The humans have clearly decided they cannot face us in open conflict. They have withdrawn to lick their wounds. We should claim their worlds before some other species moves in. The vote was unanimous. Within a week, Council fleets were moving toward human space. But in the darkness between stars, humanity was far from hiding. Commander Yun Seo stood on the bridge of the stealth ship Silent Thunder. Around her, dozens of similar ships drifted in the void, completely invisible to Council sensors. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and an expression that never showed emotion. Ghost Protocol is now fully active, she reported to Admiral Jae-sung via encrypted communication. All civilian populations have been moved to the fortress worlds. All military assets are deployed and waiting. Understood, the Admiral's voice came back. Remember, Yunseo, no witnesses. No survivors. No evidence. Confirmed, sir. We understand the mission. On the hidden world of New Sanctuary, Dr. Dae-won was putting the final touches on Project Prometheus. The research facility was built deep underground, shielded from any scanning technology the Council possessed. How long until the new weapons are ready? Asked General Moon Young, who had arrived to inspect the project. Dae-won, a thin man with tired eyes from years of constant work, smiled for the first time in months. The molecular disruptors are ready for field testing. The quantum phase cannons will be online within 2 weeks, and the dimensional displacement drives. He paused, still amazed by what they had created. General, we can now exist in multiple realities at the same time. Enemy weapons will pass right through us. Moon Young nodded. What about the enhancement program? Complete. The first 1,000 volunteers have finished the process. They are faster, stronger, and smarter than any baseline human. They can survive in space without suits, and their reflexes are enhanced beyond what any Council species can match. While the Council prepared their expansion fleets, humanity was preparing for something else entirely. The first sign of trouble came 2 weeks later. A Council patrol fleet entered what used to be human territory in the Kepler system. 12 ships, including 2 heavy cruisers and a command carrier. They were investigating reports of abandoned mining stations. The fleet commander, a Nexari captain named Zixtor, was excited about the easy assignment. Claiming abandoned territory was simple work that would look good on his record. All ships begin scanning for valuable resources, he ordered. This should be quick and profitable. That was his last transmission. On the bridge of Silent Thunder, Commander Yun Seo watched the Council ships enter the trap. Her crew was completely silent, professional soldiers who had trained for this moment for years. Target the command ship first, she ordered. Molecular disruptors maximum setting. The weapons fired, but there was no visible beam or explosion. The Council command carrier simply stopped working. Its hull began breaking apart at the atomic level, coming apart like sand in the wind. What's happening? Captain Zixtor screamed into his communicator, but his ship was already dying around him. The molecular disruptors attacked the bonds between atoms themselves. In 30 seconds, the command carrier was nothing but scattered particles. The other Council ships tried to run, but they never had a chance. Yunseo's fleet could move between dimensions, appearing and disappearing at will. One by one, the Council ships were destroyed, their hulls torn apart by weapons that ignored shields and armor. In less than 6 minutes, 12 Council ships and their crews had ceased to exist. No wreckage remained. No escape pods launched. The human ships had already vanished back into dimensional space. When the patrol fleet failed to report in, the Council assumed it was a communication error. These things happened in deep space. A week later, a mining operation in the Centauri system went dark. 300 Council workers and their protective fleet simply vanished. The mining platforms were found stripped of all valuable materials, but there were no signs of who had taken them. Pirates, Zethran declared. Some primitive species taking advantage of the empty space. But reports kept coming in. A trade convoy disappeared between 2 systems. A research station was found completely abandoned, all its data and equipment gone. A Council diplomat traveling to negotiate with a neutral species never arrived at his destination. Each incident was small by itself. Each could be explained away, but together they painted a picture that the Council was still too arrogant to see. Captain Bo Young led one of the human strike teams, enhanced soldiers who could operate in the vacuum of space using only light armor. Her team specialized in intelligence gathering. They would board Council ships, copy all data, then eliminate everyone on board. Sector 7 operation complete, she reported to Admiral Jae Sung after her latest mission. All crew eliminated, ship's computer copied, vessel destroyed. No evidence of our presence remains. Any useful intelligence? The Admiral asked. Yes, sir. We now have the complete layout of their primary shipyard. We know their patrol schedules, their security codes, and the location of their reserve fleets. Excellent work, Captain. Prepare for the next phase. By the end of the 3rd month, even the Council was beginning to worry. Too many ships were disappearing. Too many facilities were going dark. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. We are at war, Zethran finally admitted to an emergency Council session. Something is hunting our ships and installations. But with who? Demanded Vexnai. We have no evidence of any attacking force. Our sensors detect nothing. Our ships see nothing before they die. It has to be the humans, said a Thrak delegate. This all started after they walked out of negotiations. Impossible, Krikstar declared. They are primitives with crude technology. They could never challenge Council forces. Then explain the losses, Zethran said grimly. In 3 months, we have lost 47 ships, 6 major installations, and over 10,000 personnel, all without ever seeing the enemy. The room was quiet as the full scope of the situation became clear. Double all patrols, Krikstar ordered. Strengthen security at all facilities. Send a message to all member worlds. We are now at war with an unknown enemy. But even as he gave the orders, Krixtar felt a cold fear growing in his chest. An enemy that could destroy Council ships without being detected was not the primitive force he had dismissed at Harmony's Edge. Somewhere in the darkness of space, humanity was watching and waiting. The real war was just beginning. 2 years had passed since the first Council ships disappeared. The galaxy was no longer the safe, orderly place it had once been. Trade routes that had been used for centuries now sat empty. Merchant ships refused to travel without massive military escorts, and even those sometimes vanished without a trace. Commander Zethron stood in the war room on the Council's main military base, staring at a holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots marked the locations of attacks and disappearances. There were hundreds of them now, scattered across known space. "Show me the latest reports," he ordered his aide. "Yesterday, the mining fleet at Rigel 7 went dark," the aide reported. 37 ships and 15,000 workers. The patrol that went to investigate found empty space. No wreckage, no distress signals, no survivors. Zethron closed his eyes. The pattern was always the same. Council forces would arrive to find facilities completely stripped of equipment and personnel, but there was never any sign of how it happened or who was responsible. "Sir," another officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the merchant vessel Lucky Stars. They say they're under attack." "Put it through," Zethron ordered. The voice of Captain Mortex, a Nexari trader, filled the room. He sounded terrified. "This is Lucky Stars. Requesting immediate assistance. We are under attack by unknown forces. I repeat, we are—" The transmission cut off to static. "Send the closest patrol immediately," Zethron commanded, but he already knew what they would find. Nothing. On the other side of the galaxy, Engineer Hansol led a team of enhanced humans through the corridors of a Council research station. They moved like shadows, their enhanced bodies allowing them to stick to walls and ceilings while remaining completely silent. Hansol was no longer entirely human. The enhancement process had changed him, made him faster and stronger than any natural person could be. His eyes could see in complete darkness, his ears could hear heartbeats from 50 meters away, and his body could survive in the vacuum of space. "Data core located," whispered Sujin, another team member, through their mental communication link. The enhancements had given them the ability to speak directly into each other's minds. "Copy everything," Hansol ordered. "Then we clean up." The team worked with mechanical efficiency. Within minutes, they had downloaded the entire contents of the research station's computers. The data included weapons designs, fleet movements, and most importantly, the location of the Council's secret military projects. When they were finished, Hansol looked at the station's 300 sleeping residents through the security monitors. Scientists, technicians, and guards who had no idea their world was about to change forever. "Deploy the neural gas," he ordered. Invisible and odorless, the gas spread through the station's air system. Within minutes, every living being on the station was dead. Their brain functions simply stopped. There would be no witnesses, no survivors to report what they had seen. "Station secured," Hansol reported to his commander. "All personnel eliminated, all data acquired, ready for resource extraction." Within hours, massive human ships appeared from dimensional space and began dismantling the research station. Every piece of useful equipment was taken. Every valuable material was stripped away. When they were finished, only empty metal structures remained drifting in space. The Council was learning to fear the darkness between stars. On the bridge of the battleship Human's Will, Captain Bo Young studied the tactical display. Her target was the most ambitious yet, the Council's primary shipyard at Vega Prime, defended by 3 full battle fleets and thought to be completely secure. Bo Young had once been a diplomatic escort, standing quietly behind Ambassador Jin Ho during those failed negotiations. Now she commanded one of humanity's most advanced warships, a vessel that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously and carried weapons the Council couldn't even detect. "Admiral Jae Sung sends his regards," her communications officer reported. "Operation Shadowfall is authorized to proceed." "Understood," Bo Young replied. She turned to her crew, men and women who had been transformed by human science into something beyond what they had once been. All stations report ready? Dimensional drives online, reported her engineer, Ki-Wan. We can phase between realities at will. Quantum cannons charged, said Weapons Officer Hai-Jin. Molecular disruptors standing by. Enhancement protocols active, added Tae-Ho from the medical station. All crew operating at maximum efficiency. Bo-Young nodded. The human fleet consisted of 50 ships that could exist in normal space, subspace, hyperspace, and 3 other dimensions that Council science didn't even know existed. They could attack from angles that were literally impossible for the enemy to predict or defend against. Begin the attack, she ordered. The Council defenders never saw them coming. The human ships phased into normal space directly inside the shipyard's defensive perimeter, bypassing shields and sensor networks completely. The quantum cannons fired. First, their beams attacking the fundamental forces that held matter together. Council ships simply collapsed as the bonds between their atoms were severed. Entire cruisers folded in on themselves like paper being crumpled. What is happening? Screamed Admiral Velthar from the command station. How did they get inside our defenses? But his questions went unanswered. The molecular disruptors turned his flagship into scattered particles before he could even send a distress signal. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted exactly 6 hours and 14 minutes. 3 full Council battle fleets, over 200 warships, were reduced to cosmic dust. The shipyard itself was systematically disassembled, its advanced manufacturing equipment loaded onto human cargo vessels that materialized from nowhere. 15,000 Council personnel died without ever seeing their attackers clearly. When it was over, Bo-Young stood in the wreckage of the command center, stepping over the bodies of alien officers who had tried to fight an enemy they couldn't understand. Sector 7 cleansed, she reported calmly to Admiral Jae-sung. No witnesses, no survivors, all useful resources captured. Proceeding to next target. The Admiral's voice came back, as calm as her own. Outstanding work, Captain. The Council will receive the message soon. That message arrived the next day, transmitted on every Council communication frequency simultaneously. It was a simple recording, showing the complete destruction of Vega Prime in fast motion. The shipyard and its defenders were reduced to nothing in what appeared to be mere minutes. At the end of the recording, a single line of text appeared in perfect Council standard. You could have chosen peace. Chancellor Krixtar watched the recording in his private chambers, his hands shaking with rage and fear. Around him, his advisors sat in stunned silence. How is this possible, he whispered. We had 3 battle fleets protecting that facility. Our best commanders, our strongest ships. Sir, his military aide said carefully, perhaps we should consider negotiation. Negotiation? Krixtar roared, his composure finally cracking. With primitives who attack us from the shadows like cowards? But even as he said it, he knew the truth. These were not the primitive humans who had sat across from him at Harmony's Edge 2 years ago. These were something else entirely. Predators, who had been watching and learning and preparing while the Council believed them to be weak and afraid. Sir, another aide reported, we're receiving reports of simultaneous attacks on 17 other facilities across the galaxy. Military bases, research stations, mining operations. All gone. Krixtar looked out at the stars through his office window. Somewhere out there in the darkness, humanity was dismantling his civilization piece by piece, and he was powerless to stop them. How many dead? He asked quietly. Current estimates suggest over 50,000 Council personnel in the last 24 hours alone, the aide replied. And sir, they're not taking prisoners. Every attack site is empty of survivors. The room fell silent as the full implications became clear. This was not a war in any sense the Council understood. This was extermination, carried out with surgical precision by an enemy that struck without warning and left no trace. What do we do, Chancellor? Asked his chief advisor. Krixtar continued staring out at the stars. In the distance, he could see the lights of ships leaving port, probably the last free merchants fleeing to neutral space. Prepare the emergency protocols, he said finally. Send messages to every council world. The galaxy is at war. But deep in his heart, he suspected it was already too late. The humans were not interested in conquering the council. They were interested in replacing it. The council chamber was nearly empty. Of the 20 species that had once ruled the galaxy together, only 7 representatives remained. The others had either been destroyed by human attacks or had fled to neutral space, hoping to avoid the war entirely. Chancellor Krixtar looked older than his years. The stress of watching his civilization crumble had aged him rapidly. His once proud bearing was now hunched with defeat, his yellow eyes dim with exhaustion. We must try to contact them, he said to the remaining council members. There has to be a way to end this. Trade Minister Vex and I laughed bitterly. Contact them? How? They destroyed our last 3 diplomatic vessels before they even entered human space. They don't want to talk, Krixtar. They want us dead. Then what do you suggest? Krixtar demanded. In 3 years, they have destroyed 60% of our military. Our trade routes are gone. Half our worlds have been abandoned. We cannot continue like this. Perhaps, said a quiet voice from the back of the chamber, we should ask someone else to speak for us. The voice belonged to Ambassador Kelnara of the Hirani, one of the few neutral species that had refused to join the council centuries ago. The Hirani were known for their wisdom and their ability to speak with anyone. You would do this? Krixtar asked hopefully. We have already done it, Kelnara replied. The humans agreed to one meeting, one chance for you to understand what you are truly facing. A week later, the meeting took place on a neutral station in unclaimed space. Only 3 beings attended, Kelnara, Chancellor Krixtar, and a single human representative. Krixtar was shocked when he saw who the human was. Dr. Yoon Young had been part of the scientific exchange program 3 years earlier. She had spent months on council worlds, studying their technology and culture. At the time, the council had seen her as proof of human inferiority, a primitive scientist desperate to learn from her betters. Now, looking at her across the small conference table, Krixtar realized how wrong he had been. Dr. Yoon Young was no longer the quiet, humble scientist he remembered. She wore the black uniform of the Human Defense Forces, and her eyes held a cold intelligence that made him uncomfortable. But what shocked him most was that she was clearly enhanced. Her movements were too fluid, her awareness too perfect for a baseline human. Chancellor, she said politely. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. Dr. Yoon Young, Krixtar replied carefully. I confess I'm surprised to see you here. I thought you were a scientist. I am, she replied. I hold advanced degrees in xenobiology, quantum physics, and military strategy. Your people taught me much during my time in council space. I don't understand. Your people attacked us without warning, without provocation. Yoon Young tilted her head slightly. Without provocation? Chancellor, do you remember what your people offered us at Harmony's Edge? We offered you membership in galactic civilization. You offered us slavery, Yoon Young corrected quietly. You wanted 60% of our resources. You wanted to confine us to our home system. You wanted to relocate our populations to worlds of your choosing. Did you truly believe we would accept such terms? You could have continued negotiating. No, Yoon Young interrupted. We could not. Because you were never interested in negotiation. You saw us as primitives to be controlled. You made that very clear. Krixtar felt a chill run down his spine. So you decided to make war on us? Yoon Young smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. Chancellor, we did not decide to make war on you at Harmony's Edge. We decided to make war on you 70 years ago. The words hit Krixtar like a physical blow. 70 years ago? But that was before first contact. Yes, Yoon Young agreed. It was before you revealed yourselves to us, but not before we knew you existed. She activated a small device and a holographic display appeared between them. It showed star charts, ship movements, and surveillance data going back decades. We detected your ships in our system in 1952, she explained calmly. We knew we were being watched. We knew there was a galactic civilization and we began preparing for the day you would make contact. Impossible, Krixtar whispered. We spent 70 years studying you, Yoon Young continued. We intercepted your communications. We tracked your ships. We learned your languages, your politics, your weaknesses. We knew exactly what kind of people you were long before Ambassador Jin Ho sat across from you at Harmony's Edge. The hologram changed. showing images of council worlds, military bases, and trade routes. Every human who visited council space was gathering intelligence. Every trade mission was reconnaissance. Every cultural exchange was an opportunity to learn more about our future enemies. Krikstar's hands were shaking. You planned this from the beginning. Of course we did. We knew that when contact came, you would try to dominate us. Your history with other species made that clear, so we prepared for war while pretending to seek peace. But your technology was primitive. Your ships were crude. Young laughed, a sound that made Krikstar's blood run cold. You saw what we wanted you to see. While you were dismissing us as primitives, we were developing technologies your science cannot even comprehend. The hologram showed new images, human ships that existed in multiple dimensions, weapons that attacked matter at the quantum level, soldiers enhanced beyond organic limitations, dimensional phase technology, quantum manipulation weapons, biological enhancement that makes our people faster and stronger than any natural species. We developed all of this while you thought we were playing with fire like children. How? Krikstar asked desperately. Because we are not like you, Yun-Young replied. Your species reached a comfortable level of technology and stopped innovating. You became lazy, content to use the same weapons and ships for centuries. But humans never stop improving, never stop learning, never stop preparing for the next threat. She leaned forward, her enhanced eyes boring into his. Did you know that every human world had evacuation plans? Every colony was prepared to disappear within hours? We call it Ghost Protocol, the ability to vanish completely when threatened, taking every resource and every person with us. You abandoned your worlds. We relocated our populations to fortress worlds you cannot find. Worlds shielded by technology that makes them invisible to your sensors. From there, we launched our war against you. Krikstar was beginning to understand the scope of humanity's deception. The negotiations were a lie. You never intended to join the council. The negotiations were intelligence gathering, Yun-Young corrected. We needed to confirm our assessments of council leadership. We needed to see if you were capable of treating other species as equals. And your conclusion? You failed every test. You revealed yourselves to be exactly what we expected. Bullies and tyrants who see other species as resources to exploit. The room was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Krikstar found his voice. What do you want? Surrender, Yun-Young replied simply. Complete and unconditional surrender of all council forces. Acknowledgement of human authority over all former council territories. Acceptance of humanity as the new galactic power. And if we refuse, then we continue doing what we have been doing. Systematic elimination of council military assets. Dismantling of council infrastructure. Extinction of council species who refuse to cooperate. You would commit genocide? We would eliminate threats to human security, Yun-Young replied without emotion. Just as you would have eliminated us if you had been capable of it. Krikstar slumped in his chair. The weight of his people's failure pressed down on him like a crushing force. How long do we have to decide? The decision has already been made, Yun-Young said, standing up. Captain Hyunwoo is currently approaching your homeworld with a fleet of 200 ships. If you do not broadcast your surrender in the next 6 hours, your world will be cleansed of all life. She walked toward the door, then paused. Chancellor, you had the opportunity to treat us as equals. You chose to see us as servants. Now you will learn what it means to serve a species that conquered the galaxy in less than 5 years. After she left, Krikstar sat alone in the room with Ambassador Kelnara. They were always the predators, he whispered. We were always the prey, Kelnara nodded sadly. The Hirani have an old saying. Never corner a species that evolved by surviving ice ages and asteroid impacts. You forgot that humans became the dominant species on their world by outlasting every other large predator. What do I do? Survive, Chancellor. That is all any of us can do now. 6 hours later, the surrender was broadcast on every council frequency. The Galactic War was over. Humanity had won. 5 years after the failed negotiations at Harmony's Edge, the galaxy was a very different place. The old council chambers now served as administrative offices for the human galactic authority. Where once alien representatives had debated policy, human administrators now managed the daily operations of hundreds of worlds. Chancellor Krikstar walked slowly down the corridor toward his daily briefing. He wore the gray robes of a human protectorate administrator, a position that granted him the privilege of continued existence in exchange for absolute obedience. His once proud bearing had been broken by years of servitude. Behind him walked his former colleagues, ex-Trade Minister Vexnai, ex-Commander Zethran, and the handful of other council members who had been allowed to live. They had all learned the same lesson. Cooperation meant survival, resistance meant extinction. The briefing room was smaller than the old council chamber. It only needed to accommodate the dozen former council members who still served as local administrators for their home systems. At the head of the table sat Admiral Moon Young, humanity's galactic administrator. Moon Young was enhanced like most humans in positions of authority. Her movements were precisely calculated. Her awareness extended far beyond normal biological limits. She could process information faster than any organic brain, react quicker than any natural reflexes allowed. She was what humanity had become, something beyond what they had once been. "Good morning," she said as the former council members took their seats. "We have much to discuss today." Crickstar opened his datapad and began reading the daily reports. Production quotas from the mining worlds, agricultural output from the farming colonies, manufacturing statistics from the industrial systems. All of it flowed to human worlds now. Just as human resources had once been demanded by the Council, the irony was not lost on anyone in the room. "Sector 7 reports are below acceptable levels," Moon Young announced. Administrator Vexnai explained. The former trade minister stood quickly. Years of human rule had taught him to show proper deference. "Admiral, there was a malfunction at the primary refinery. Repairs are underway and production should return to normal within 2 days. See that it does. The human colonies require those materials on schedule." "Yes, Admiral." Moon Young continued through the reports with mechanical efficiency. Every aspect of the former council's territory was now managed for human benefit. The conquered species provided labor, resources, and obedience. In return, they were allowed to continue existing. It was, Crickstar reflected bitterly, exactly what they had planned to do to humanity. "There is one more matter," Moon Young said as the briefing wound down. "President Ki-hoon will be addressing the galaxy tonight. All administrators are required to attend." That evening, Crickstar joined billions of beings across the galaxy in watching the transmission from Earth. President Ki-hoon stood in the restored human capital, speaking from the same building where Ambassador Jin Ho had received his orders for the Harmony's Edge negotiations years earlier. Ki-hoon was not enhanced like the military leaders, but his presence commanded attention nonetheless. He had been elected by the human people to lead their species into its role as galactic rulers. "Citizens of the galaxy," he began, his voice calm and measured. 5 years ago, the Galactic Council made a choice. They chose to see humanity as servants rather than equals. They chose dominance over cooperation. They chose war over peace. The camera pulled back to show the grand hall where he spoke, filled with human representatives from hundreds of worlds. Behind them, screens showed images of the thriving human colonies that now dotted the galaxy. Today, the galaxy operates under different principles. Principles of human supremacy, human justice, and human order. We have brought stability to a galaxy that was ruled by chaos and corruption. On his homeworld, Crickstar watched the broadcast alongside the few Veltharians who remained. Most of his species had been relocated to designated worlds after attempting armed resistance. The survivors had learned to keep their thoughts to themselves. Under human rule, every species has a place and a purpose. Ki-hoon continued. Those who accept their role in our new order prosper. Those who resist face consequences that are swift and permanent. The screen showed images of productive alien workers, well-fed and housed in clean facilities. But everyone watching knew that other images existed. The empty worlds where entire species had once lived before they chose resistance over compliance. "We did not ask to become your rulers," Ki-hoon said. "You forced this role upon us when you rejected our offer of friendship. But we have accepted the responsibility that you gave us, and we will exercise it with the firmness that galactic order requires." After the broadcast ended, Crickstar sat in his small apartment, staring out at the city beyond his window. Human ships patrolled the skies, their presence a constant reminder of who now controlled his world. Enhanced human soldiers walked the streets, maintaining order through their mere presence. His door chimed softly. When it opened, Dr. Su Young entered wearing the blue uniform of the Human Administrative Corps. Su Young had been one of the scientists who participated in the early cultural exchanges. Like Dr. Yun Young, She had used her time in council space to gather intelligence for the coming war. Now she served as the liaison between the human government and the surviving alien populations. "Good evening, Administrator Crickstar," she said politely. "Dr. Su Young, what brings you here?" She sat down across from him, her enhanced eyes studying his expression with uncomfortable intensity. "I have news from the human authority. Your species has been selected for evaluation." Crickstar felt his blood turn cold. "Evaluation?" "Yes. The human authority has determined that some species provide insufficient value to justify their continued existence. Over the next year, each conquered species will be evaluated based on their contributions to human civilization. And if we fail this evaluation..." Su Young's expression did not change. "Then you will be relocated to worlds better suited to your, capabilities." Crickstar knew what that meant. The same thing the Council had once planned for humanity. Concentration on designated worlds where populations could be managed and eventually eliminated. "What must we do to pass?" he asked quietly. "Prove your usefulness. Demonstrate that the Veltharian people can contribute meaningfully to human society. Show that your species deserves a place in our new order." After she left, Crickstar stood at his window for a long time, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, other former council members were receiving similar visits from human administrators. All of them were learning the same lesson he had just learned. The galaxy belonged to humanity now. And unlike their predecessors, humans kept their promises. The next morning, Crickstar began preparing his species' survival plan. Like all conquered peoples, the Veltharians would have to prove their worth or face extinction. They would have to find a way to make themselves indispensable to their human masters. It was, he realized, exactly what they had expected humanity to do 5 years earlier. In his office at the Human Authority headquarters, Admiral Jae-sung reviewed the monthly reports from across the galaxy. Human colonies were thriving. Resource extraction exceeded all projections. The conquered species were adapting to their new roles with acceptable efficiency. He was interrupted by a communication from Captain Bo Young, who now commanded the human patrol fleets that maintained order across known space. "Admiral, we have a situation in the Rigel system. One of the Thrak colonies is showing signs of potential rebellion." "Handle it," Jae-sung replied without looking up from his reports. "Standard protocol." "Understood, sir. Should I leave survivors for questioning?" "No, complete cleansing. Make sure the other Thrak colonies understand the consequences of resistance." "Confirmed." "Deploying now." Jae-sung returned to his reports. The Thrak had been useful engineers, but they had chosen to test human resolve. That choice would cost them their existence, just as it had cost so many other species over the past 5 years. Humanity had tried to join the galaxy as equals. When that was rejected, they had joined as conquerors instead. The Council had taught them that the galaxy respected only strength, so humanity had become stronger than anyone else. They had become what the galaxy required them to be. Not the peaceful explorers they had once hoped to become, but the ruthless rulers that alien arrogance had created. As he worked late into the night, Admiral Jae-sung sometimes wondered what the galaxy might have been like if the Council had chosen differently at Harmony's Edge. If they had offered friendship instead of servitude. If they had seen humanity as potential partners rather than resources to exploit. But such thoughts were pointless now. The Council had made their choice, and humanity had responded accordingly. The galaxy was at peace under human rule, a peace maintained by the constant reminder of what happened to species that disturbed that order. In the end, the Galactic Council had gotten exactly what they deserved. They had demanded that humanity learn their place in the galaxy. Now they knew it.